wa barakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We start the PAAMA program, Journey to Mauritius, with a recitation from the Holy Quran. I request Mukarram Laik Ram Jan Sahib to please recite.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم. وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه هو السميع العليم. Chapitre 41, versets 34 à 37.
And whose is better speech that one calls to Allah and says that I am of those who submit, and good and evil are not the same. Repel evil with what is best, and the one between whom and this is only given those who are endurant and those who have a high degree of resolve. And if an incitement from Satan strike thee, then seek refuge with Allah.
Ta'ala Asan al-Jaza. Now Mukarram Hamid Abdur Rahman Sahib would make the introduction.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Welcome to all our viewers. We believe that we have people probably on 3 continents here in North America, in Belgium, in Europe, in UK, and also Mauritius, part of Africa, who would be joining us. Why this journey to Mauritius? What's special? Is it a touristic view of Mauritius? I just want to remind ourselves and that everything that is beneficial in this world comes from Allah. In the whole of the universe, He created it, and then He created the Holy Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then the Holy Quran and the blessings of the Holy Quran. And in the Holy Quran, there's mention of the second coming of the Holy Prophet in Surah Jummah, and we know that was mentioning the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, peace be upon him. And after the promised Messiah and his demise, then the system of Khilafat started. So whatever blessing there is, it is blessing not about places and people, it is about their link to Allah and through Allah to the various points that I've mentioned. In the case of Mauritius, Mauritius was the second country in the world to whom a missionary was sent from Qadian in the time of the second Khalifa. The first missionary went to London, so the first mission was opened in London, and then the second one was Mauritius. But thereafter, that seed that was planted by Sufi, Hazrat Sufi Ghulam Muhammad Sahib, Raziat al-Anhu, Allah be pleased with him, a companion of the promised Messiah, that seed grew and produced people in Mauritius who then started giving back to the world of Islam Ahmadiyyat. So today's event, in fact, is going to be what is called in Arabic or in Urdu, Tehdis-e-Ne'mat, a proclamation of favors received from Allah, and that is in the shape of the people that have been created by Islam Ahmadiyya in Mauritius, the missionaries, Maulana Jahangir Khan Sahib, Maulana Sikandar, and who then served French-speaking Africa and many other places from Mauritius to proclaim, to spread the message of the promised Messiah. And so today, what we are going to be hearing, whether from Jahangir Sahib and what he has learned while being in Africa and then living close to Khilafat at the center, but also from Hafiz Sikandar Sahib about the realization of a prophecy given to the promised Messiah by Allah, that kings shall seek blessings from my garments, riding on horses, and how that was actually realized while he was in Benin. And Maulana Ghani Jahangir was also sent by the Khalifatul Masih IV, Allah be pleased with him, to be part of that realization. I will not take more time. I'm just giving you a taste, a pre-taste of what's happening. So join us for the ride, and let's all pray that we all benefit from this event. Jazakumullah khairan jaza. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah ta'ala ahsanul jaza for this introduction. Now I welcome our first speaker, respected Muhammad Hanif Muslim Sahib, Amir Sahib of Jamaat Ahmadiyya Mauritius. He would be speaking on Islam Ahmadiyyat in Mauritius, past, present, and future. And what are the expectations of the Mauritian diaspora? Mohtaram Muhammad Hanif Muslim Sahib.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Hafiz Sahib, Canada Jamaat, distinguished members of the panel, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam.
Alhamdulillah. I wish to thank the organizers of this event for giving me the opportunity to make a presentation on the past, present, and future of Islam Ahmadiyyat in Mauritius. So we shall start from the very beginning. In 1874, that is 15 years before the foundation of Ahmadiyyat, a Mauritian named Ibrahim Suleiman Acha performed Hajj and heard that the coming of the Messiah was imminent. It was the birds in Mecca, and he brought this news back to Mauritius. Shortly after 1889, the message of someone having declared himself the Messiah started spreading across the British Empire. In 1907, Mr. Noor Mahmoud Nouraya, who was a school headmaster from Mauritius, started receiving copies of the Review of Religions. He took a keen interest in the contents, as those articles brought to the fore a defining moment in the history of Islam. Being a publisher, he translated and republished some extracts in French in a magazine named L'Islamiste. In around 1912, Mr. Nouraya became convinced of the truth of Ahmadiyya and relayed his thoughts to Mr. Muhammad Azim Sultan Ghus, a colleague of his. Mr. Sultan Ghus and Nouraya requested for Jamaat literature from Qadian. In 1914, a small group of Muslims were ready to join Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Under the recommendation of an Indian Ahmadi soldier posted in Mauritius, the first Ahmadi of Mauritius wrote to Qadian requesting that a missionary be sent to preach Ahmadiyya. In 1915 marks the year where the Jamaat in Mauritius started to get properly organized. Sufi Ghulam Muhammad Sahib, a companion of the promised Messiah salam, was the first missionary to be sent outside of India during the Khilafat of that Muslim Maud. His destination, Mauritius. He reached Mauritius on the 15th of June, and the Jamaat was established in 1915. Ahmadis used to offer their daily prayers in a mosque in the town of Rose Hill. It was their practice to offer their prayers after the Sunni brothers, Sunni here we call the non-Ahmadi Muslims, after the Sunni brothers had finished their prayers. This practice was uncharted territory, and it soon became a source of legal conflict, with an increasing number of Sunni Muslims saying their prayers behind Sufi Sahib, including the Sunni Imam. The courts eventually concluded that since the mosque belonged to the Sunni Muslims, it would be unfair that they found themselves uncomfortable in their own place. It was therefore ruled that Ahmadi Muslims would not be allowed to say their prayers in a separate congregation, in the Sunni-owned mosque. However, there were no restrictions on individual prayers. In 1923, the Jamaat was registered as Ahmadiyya Anjuman Mauritius, and a plot of land nearby was acquired to build a mosque. Darussalam saw the day. In 1917, a second Jamaat was established in the village of Saint-Pierre. The Jamaat needed a second missionary. Maulana Hafiz Bashir Ubaidullah Sahib was sent to Mauritius. In 1919, a new Jamaat was set up in Triolet, a village in the north of Mauritius. Hafiz Ubaidullah Sahib was blessed with a son, Bashiruddin Ubaidullah, who would later serve as missionary in the island. This year was also marked by the sad demise of Hafiz Ubaidullah Sahib. He was the first Ahmadi martyr in Mauritius. He is buried in Pai Cemetery, just outside the capital city, Port Louis. In 1927, Hazrat Sufi Ghulam Muhammad Sahib departed after 12 long, successful years in Mauritius. In 1928, Hafiz Jamal Ahmad Sahib arrived in Mauritius. At that time, there were 4 Jamaats already established around the island. Hafiz Jamal Ahmad Sahib served for 21 years. To mark the 25th year of Khilafat of Hazrat Muslim Maud Anhu, the first Jalsa Salana in Mauritius was held at Darussalam to celebrate the occasion. It was the 14th March 1939. Hafiz Sahib passed away on the 27th December 1949 after a short illness. and Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu anhu appointed Mr. Muhammad Azim Sultan Ghus as the Amir of the Jamaat. In 1950, the first Mauritian delegation attended Jalsa Salana in Rabwa. Following the request by the Mauritian delegation, Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu anhu appointed Hafiz Bashiruddin Ubaidullah Sahib as missionary in charge of Mauritius. On 4th July 1951, Hafiz Bashiruddin Ubaidullah Sahib and his family reached Mauritius by air from Kenya. Lajna Imaillah was established in Mauritius by the wife of Hafiz Bashiruddin Ubaidullah Sahib. In 1955, Maulana Fazal Ilahi Bashir Sahib was appointed to Mauritius, and following the departure of Hafiz Bashiruddin Ubaidullah Sahib, he took charge of the Jamaat. In 1960, Hazrat Muslim Maud Raziyallahu anhu sent a second missionary to Mauritius in the person of Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib. This would be the start of a period in which the profile of the Jamaat gained increasing prominence. Maulana Fazal Ilahi Bashir Sahib went back to Rabwa on the 12th of January 1961. Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib launched the first edition of Le Message, a periodical which still appears regularly to this day. 1961, this year marked the start of the reconstruction of Darussalam Mosque. Members of the Jamaat contributed 200,000 rupees, and the remaining 300,000 rupees were donated by the ladies of our Jamaat, who donated their jewelry. The faith of the Jamaat members the faith of the Jamaat members at the time inspire us to this day. And one of the most remarkable sacrifices was from a lady. She was a widow and had been saving for the marriage of her son. She donated all the money for the reconstruction of Darussalam. The reconstruction was supervised by Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib. It lasted 7 months. We remember to this day the extraordinary feat of a team of 225 volunteers who worked non-stop for 38 hours to lay the roof slab for the first floor. In January 1962, the first Ahmadiyya college, Talimul Islam, was launched, and later this year, the construction of Darussalam was completed. In 1964, a Jalsa was held to commemorate the 50th year of the Second Khilafat. In 1965, Maulana Fazal Ilahi Bashir Sahib left Mauritius for Israel after a second spell in the island. And in 1966, Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib returned to Mauritius. The precursor to the great things to come, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Salis had a dream about Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib and wrote to him the following letter. Alhamdulillah, you have reached safely. I was told in a dream that on your reaching Mauritius, there will be some great changes. Inshallah, Allah will make the best arrangement. Keep your trust in Allah. During this stay, Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib organized many social, spiritual, and religious events, elevating the image of the Jamaat in Mauritius. Mauritius gained its independence in 1968, and the Jamaat, under the leadership of Maulana Ismail Munir Sahib, participated fully in that event. In September 1988, for the first time ever, a Khalifa-elect visited Mauritius. The Jamaat of Mauritius had the honor to have and to benefit from the presence of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi, Rahimullah Ta'ala. During the visit, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi, Rahimullah Ta'ala, met with various dignitaries, including the Prime Minister and the Governor General of Mauritius. In 1989, Mauritius was the first country in the world to receive the live Friday sermon of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimullah Ta'ala via telephone line, followed by Germany. In 1993, the Jamaat was blessed with a second visit of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahimullah Ta'ala. On the 26th of December, Huzur delivered the opening speech for Jalsa Salana International, Qadian, live from Darussalam, Rose Hill. It was the first time that outside London, the Khalifa's message was being transmitted live to Qadian and to the rest of the world. Huzur announced that from the land of Mauritius, we are participating in the Jalsa of Qadian, and his address is being transmitted to Qadian and to the rest of the world. By the grace of Allah, Mauritius Jamaat has had many missionaries, among whom Maulana Ahmad Shamsair Sufia Sahib, born in 1933 and passed away in 2014. He served for a long time in Ivory Coast and Benin, where to this day he is fondly remembered. He also served in many outer islands. Currently, there are 4 Mauritian missionaries serving in Mauritius and abroad. 2 of these prominent people are present here on this forum. We also currently have 6 young missionaries serving in Mauritius. There are presently 4 Mauritian students at Jamia Ahmadiyya International Ghana and 1 at Jamia Ahmadiyya Canada. In 2005, Mauritius Jamaat had the honor of a first visit from Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Al-Khamis, Aidullah Ta'ala bin Nasir Aziz, from 29th November to 11th December 2005. These were memorable and blessed days for the Jamaat. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Al-Khamis, Aidullah Ta'ala bin Nasir Aziz, instructed that Mauritius sets up an MTA studio in 2016. It falls under MTA Africa. The studio has high quality equipment and, most importantly, devoted workers, among whom are 3 Waqifine Zindagi, including the head of MTA Mauritius, who is a Murabbi. Under current activities, the Jamaat recently held a branding campaign to get the name and activities of the Jamaat known to the population. For over a week, across the island, billboards displayed the new CMA logo. CMA means Communauté Musulmane Ahmadiyya. Mega blood donations were organized, fundraising activity organized by Atfalul Ahmadiyya to help needy children. Flyers with the new CMA logo and a brief introduction to the Jamaat were distributed all around the island. Goodies were also given freely to people visiting our stalls. Social media campaigns were held to promote the CMA logo. This campaign created an awareness in people as to the identity of the Jamaat. By the grace of Allah, people all over the island started contacting the Jamaat to know what it's all about. Some called just to express the appreciation of the work the Jamaat is doing. This opened new avenues of tabligh, which led to getting new contacts and eventually achieving 2 bayts. Alhamdulillah. In upcoming projects, we have the development of our 24,227 square meters land named Gulshan Ahmad. Inshallah, the plan is to erect a 3,750 square meters conference hall that will accommodate around 5,000 people. This complex will include the men and the women's halls and separate blocks for administrative officers and MTA studio, as well as recreational areas for men and ladies. As conclusion, I will quote what our beloved Huzur said addressing the PAAMA in London in 2010. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Al-Khamis Aidullah Ta'ala bin Nasir Aziz said, "I truly believe that the time is fast approaching for Africa to lead the world. And in order to lead the world, it is necessary to bring about revolutionary changes within you. Every citizen and every leader must put aside their thoughts and interests in order to strengthen, consolidate, and serve the national interest." While being fortunate to have witnessed the accomplishment of the prophecy of the promised Messiah, I shall cause thy message to reach the corners of the earth, and kings shall seek blessings from thy garments, and to have the special love and prayers of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, we must also realize our responsibilities towards mankind today, which is to lead them towards recognizing their Creator and accepting the promised Messiah of the latter days. Through those teachings, the dead come to life. This was a very brief presentation about the past, present, and future of Islam Ahmadiyyat in Mauritius. Jazakumullah for your attention.
Jazakumullah ta'ala asan al-jaza. Next is a presentation of some visuals by respected Dr. Muhammad Sadiq Budan Sahib. Mukarram Dr. Muhammad Sadiq Budan.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to everyone around the globe. My first few slides will be about Mauritius in general. The rest of the slides will be a recap of the history of Islam Ahmadiyya in Mauritius. Mauritius is located in the Indian Ocean. Mauritius extends 61 kilometers north to south and 47 kilometers east to west. It has 177 kilometers of coastline. Its 10th district, Rodrigue Island, is 350 miles away. Madagascar is located between Mauritius and the continent of Africa. Other neighboring islands include Reunion, Agaliga, Seychelles, Comoros, and Mayotte. Next. Mauritius is known as the United Nations in miniature. Mostly the bulk of the population migrated from the subcontinent. Next slide. Next slide. Beautiful beaches and sugarcane fields are important sources of revenue for the island. Fruits are plenty. I chose to show lychees because recently Huzur suggested that the community in Mauritius should grow lychees instead of bananas on its agricultural land. Longan is also very popular on the island. Next slide. The fishing industry is thriving very well. For some, fishing is a pastime. For others, it is a profession. Next slide. Introduction of Islam Ahmadiyya in Mauritius. During the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, Mr. Nuraya, shown on the slide, received a copy of the Review of Religions in 1907. He was from the Comoros Island and became the first person living in Mauritius at the time to make the Pledge of Allegiance at the time of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Awwal in 1912. Next slide. In 1915, Sufi Ghulam Muhammad Sahib reached Mauritius by ship. He was a companion of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. Many missionaries have since served after him. I plan to dedicate a special lecture as a tribute to all these missionaries in the near future. Next slide. In 1923, Darussalam was built as the first Ahmadiyya Muslim mosque in Mauritius. Next slide. Darussalam was rebuilt around 1963. Darussalam Mosque now serves as the headquarters of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community of Mauritius. In 1988, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Rabi visited Mauritius for the first time. Huzur is seen in this slide delivering a lecture on the subject of evolution at the University of Mauritius. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Rabi paid a courtesy visit to the then president of Mauritius, Sir Birasami Rangadou. In 1993, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi returned to Mauritius. He is seen in this slide addressing Jalsa Salana Qadian from Darussalam Mosque in Mauritius. During that visit, the fourth Khalifa flew to the neighboring Reunion Island. This picture was taken in Saint-Benoît at the house of a local Ahmadi doctor. There is now a mission house in the capital city of Saint-Denis, Reunion Island. In 2005, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad inaugurated Jalsa Salana in Mauritius. Huzur paid a courtesy visit to the then President of Mauritius, Sir Anirudh Jugnauth. Huzur visited the famous seven-colored earth attraction in the village of Chamarel. Also in 2005, Huzur flew to Rodrigue Islands, the 10th district of Mauritius. Ahmadiyya Muslim community of Mauritius has two mosques in Rodrigue Island. One of them is Masjid Noor in Port Maturin. In 2015, Chaudhry Hamidullah Saheb and Mirza Khurshid Ahmad Saheb were the two main delegates for the centenary Mauritius Jalsa Salana. In 2019, Amir Jamaat Canada Lal Khan Malik Saheb participated in the Mauritius Jalsa Salana. Amir Sahib Mauritius is seen here welcoming Amir Sahib Canada at the Nusrat Mosque in Catrabon. The Nusrat Mosque was inaugurated by Hazrat Mirza Wasim Ahmad Sahib in 1975. And now the last slide. Huzur is having a virtual meeting with the Waqf-e-Nau of Mauritius. Thank you.
Jazakumullah ta'ala ahsan al-jaza. Next we come to the second speech that is by respected Ghani Jahangir Khan Sahib, head of French desk in the UK, and the topic is attachment to Khilafat, attachment to Khulafa, first-hand experience and the blessings. Mukarram Ghani Jahangir Khan Sahib.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Respected Amir Sahib Canada, respected Amir Sahib of Mauritius, Maulana Hafiz Sikandar Sahib, and all the other panelists and organizers and brothers and sisters today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much indeed for having included me in this very blessed and unique program. Jazakumullah. Now, today I'd like to speak about some of the aspects of the relationship which we have enjoyed with the Khulafa, which are not so well known. So they're not the usual, religious types of things which we talk about usually. These are certain personal things and some things which are slightly out of the ordinary. I have to say that my first encounter with the Khalifa was in 1967. I do not remember it at all because I was only 2 weeks old. My parents had brought me to meet Hazrat Khalifa Salis Rahimahullah when he had visited London at the time. And it was during that same month that he had made this very well-known speech regarding the Third World War. And he had given a warning to the whole world, in particular to the Western world, that they should change their ways or else this nuclear war would be coming. So this was during that visit that I actually was brought to see Huzur. I was very blessed in the sense that he placed his hand on my head and prayed for me. Maybe some of those blessings brought me back to the London Mosque, which was the place where we met. And I've been in England for quite a long time now, and I've been attached to the Fazl Mosque, since I came back to England. Now, some of the things which I've noticed, which Hazrat Khalifa Rabi, rahimahullah, said, because I worked with Hazrat Khalifa Rabi for about 8 years. Among those things, there's one which I recall very fondly. When I had been in the Congo, which at that time was called Zaire, I had been called to England by Hazrat Khalifa al-Abi because I was having some health issues in the Congo. And I was brought to Islamabad in Tilford. Now, when I reached Islamabad, one day they told me Huzur was going to visit. And they told me that, Huzur usually visits here every 2 weeks or so. And when Huzur has finished making his tour of Islamabad, he will go into his residence for a few minutes. Then he will come out. In the meantime, all the children have to line up and expect to receive a chocolate from Huzur. So I said, that's very nice. They said, yes, it's very nice, but you're going to have to line up too, because you aren't married, so it's always going to consider you a child. So I was quite embarrassed because all the other children were much younger than me. I think the eldest at the time maybe was, 13 or 14. I was 20. But anyway, I stood a little bit away from the group of children. And then Husur came out of his residence and started distributing the chocolates down the line to the girls and the boys waiting. And then suddenly he looked up and said, Mauritius, where's Mauritius? So some missionaries pushed me forward, and then I realized it was me that Husur was calling as Mauritius. So Husur said, come, you're not married yet, you have to get a chocolate. So this is how I was receiving a chocolate every time Husur was visiting. On one occasion, this is why I wanted to bring this up, because there was a lesson in there of humility of the Khulafa. On this one occasion, a few months later, Husur visited again. And on this time Husur went into his residence and didn't come out for almost 1 hour. Now, in the meantime, there were some very little children among us who were waiting, and they were getting impatient. Now, eventually, when Husur came out, Husur started distributing the chocolates down the line as he used to do. When he reached a little 3-year-old girl, she told him, Husur, do you know how long we've been waiting for you? So Husur put his hands like this. He said, I beg forgiveness. I will never do it again. And her father, of course, almost fainted of embarrassment because he was present in the assembly outside. But in fact, Husur never ever was never ever late again. That was the one time. So Husur, although everybody was laughing, but Husur took it very seriously, and he made sure that he never came out of his house, after waiting a while, and didn't ever make the children wait for a long time again. So this, for me, was a lesson of their humility, that even in front of a child complaining, the Khulafa take it very seriously. One day we were walking in Islamabad, and Husur was visiting that day. And when Husur saw me, he called me and he held my hand, and we kept on walking. And I saw another little girl come up to Husur and said, Husur, do you remember last time you came, you gave me a chocolate? So Husur said, I know what you want. Don't worry, you'll get one today also. So then I ventured to ask Husur, I said, why do children love you so much? Husur said, the secret is very simple. He said, I love them, and that's why they love me. So he said, if you love children, they will love you. So I drew a lesson from that also, that it was a very, very useful lesson which benefited me throughout my life later on. Now, I was sent to Belgium in 1989. So today there's going to be a bit of overlap. Hafiz Sahib had also been in Zaire. Actually, we were together for a while in Zaire. And now he's in Belgium. I had also been in Belgium. Now, when I was in Belgium, Husur visited us very soon after my wife had joined me there. And one morning when Husur came out of his room, he said, let's go and see the garden. So we were walking around the garden, and he told me, we have quite a few apple trees here. What are you going to do with all these apples? So I didn't really know what to answer. Then Husur said, I think you're going to make a pickle out of it. Because he said, there is nothing on earth that Mauritians can't make a pickle out of. So I found that quite surprising. And that's when Husur had just recently visited Mauritius. This was brought up a little earlier, when Husur had been there just the year before in 1988. I think it was towards the middle of the year, towards August. So Husur had sampled these chutneys and pickles firsthand. And he was quite amazed that they were being made by every kind of fruit or any kind of vegetable imaginable. So this is what Husur had said about Mauritian pickles. Now, when I went back to England in 1995, I started to fix my garden a little bit in front of my residence in Islamabad. Somehow Husur found out about this, and I had only hardly put in a few plants in front of my garden, in front of my house, that I received a phone call from the private secretary sub. He said, Huzur has found out that you're a gardener. And Huzur is asking, could you kindly take care of my garden in Islamabad, but only if it's not a burden on you. So I said, well, this is a very blessed opportunity. Who would reject such an offer? So I immediately said, yes, of course, I'll do so. And I continued to look after Huzur's garden for 8 years after this. Sometimes some of our mulaqats would be mostly about the garden. Huzur would be giving me instructions, what he wants next in the garden or what could be improved, etc. And this gave me a window onto Huzur's, thoughts and personality that you don't usually hear or see in daily life. So it was very interesting to me. And I think Huzur probably knew that that Mauritians are gardeners by nature. Everybody in Mauritius tends to a garden here or there. And it's very much part of our tradition as a people, So maybe this is also why Huzur had requested me to look after his garden. Now, when Hazrat Khalifa Khamis Ayatollah Talab Aziz came to England and was elected as Khalifa, we didn't really know what was going to happen to our departments. Is everything going to change? Is the work which we were doing going to be different? We didn't know. But I was called by Huzur, and Huzur said, whatever is going on now, it will just continue. So he told me, he said, I know you're looking after the garden. Now it's this Khalifa's residence. It used to be Hazrat Khalifa Rabi's, now it's Hazrat Khalifa Khamis's residence. He said, I know you've been looking after the garden. And he told me exactly the same thing that Hazrat Khalifa Rabi had said initially. He said, could you please continue to look after the garden, but only if it's not a burden on you. So I said, yes, Huzur, I'd love to continue. So I continued for another 8 years until finally, due to a health problem, I had to stop. But so this is how I looked after Huzur's garden for 8 years, and then Hazrat Khalifa Rabi's garden first, and then Hazrat Khalifa Khamis's garden for 8 years also. Now, one thing I learned from Hazrat Khalifa Khamis, and this is a tip for any avid gardeners out there, we had some cherry trees in that garden that were not bearing any fruit at all. In fact, during the 8 years that I was gardening for Hazrat Khalifa Rabi, we never got any cherries on those 2 trees. Now, when Hazrat Khalifa Khamis Ayatollah arrived, he noticed that. He said, it doesn't seem like you're getting any fruit on these cherry trees. So he said, I suggest you do something. He said, do you know what the drip zone means? And I hadn't got a clue what the drip zone was. Huzur said, actually, you see how far the branches extend out from the trunk? That's approximately how far the roots also extend out of the trunk. And he said, if you put fertilizer at the tips of where the branches end on the ground, so the same distance away from the trunk, that's where the roots will be feeding from. So put your fertilizer around that, in that circle, and then you'll get fruits. We did it, and that was the first year that we got cherries from the tree. Now, quickly moving on, in 1998, one day, and I can have the first slide here, which is the Fazl Mosque. Something happened in the month of October at Fazl Mosque, London. So whoever is doing the slides, if they could kindly put, yes, this is it. So the London Mosque, which you all know very well. Now, if you remember where Huzur used to reside at the London Mosque, you will know that Huzur used to come out from a door in the front of the building near Mahmud Hall, and he would walk all the way around until he came to Fazl Mosque during the day. This is what his routine used to be. Now, that day it was very, very cold. In fact, the temperature had fallen to around -10, and it was quite unusual for us, especially in October. I received a phone call from Major Mahmood Sahib telling me, come quickly, there's somebody you have to meet. Now, because they know that Mauritians speak different languages, usually when we had some difficult cases of people speaking different languages, they used to call me and tell me, your people are here. And that could mean anyone from anywhere in the world. But they'd say they're your people. So you speak with them and deal with them, see how you can understand them. So when he told me, come quickly, I was doing Darood, saying Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, not knowing who that person could be who was waiting for me. When Major Sahib brought me into the waiting room for the Mulaqati people, I said, where is the person? He said, there behind the table. So I thought this must be a mad person or something. I was quite, upset. But when I went around, I saw it was a pigeon. So if we could have a slide, it was a pigeon like this one, very similar to this. And it was covered in oil. Major Saab said that this pigeon was sitting on Husur's doorstep, and when Husur came back from Namaz Maghrib, he found it. Now Husur has said that I want you to look after this pigeon, clean it, and I'm going to ask for a report. He said, but you know, we don't know how to look after pigeons. So I'm asking you, please, could you do that for me? But be careful, I'm going to ring you in a little while and ask you what happened. So I took the pigeon, I washed it with shampoo, washed it with fairy liquid, etc., liquid soap, and got it, back to its former shape. After a few days, it was okay again. So I showed it to Husur when he came out of Namaz Asr. Husur said, today is the French Mulakat program on MTA. Could you kindly bring this pigeon as well with you? And it will become the star of the show. So then Husur had me stand, like a little child holding the pigeon in front of the whole world. And he said, Husur said, tell the people how you looked after it, etc. So I told them. Then Husur said, I've shown you all this so that you know that you have to treat animals kindly. So this was the lesson which Husur gave us that day. Now, there's just one more incident I'd like to mention very fast, very quickly. In 1989, Hazrat Khalifa al-Abbi Rahimahullah planted a walnut tree to mark the centenary of the Jamaat in Islamabad. And Husur said something quite amazing. He said, this walnut tree will only bear fruit when the tabligh of the UK Jamaat bears fruit. Now, when I came in 1995, by that time, the walnut tree should have borne fruit, but it had not. So I started to take care of it. We were watering it. I and Abdul Momin Tahir Sahib, also of the Arabic desk, watering it, weeding it, giving it fertilizer. Year after year, it just did not bear any fruit at all, no walnuts at all. Now, one day, we had the National Tabligh Secretary, Sahib, who visited. And this is in the time of Hazrat Khalifa Khamis now, so many years later. He is an Algerian himself, Kamal Baruja Sahib. He was visiting with some guests and he asked me, could you kindly give us a guided tour? So I took him around and we arrived at this tree and I said, this is a historic tree because it was planted by Hazrat Khalifa al-Abbi for the centenary. And then I told him the little story what Husur had said. So he began to look in between the leaves and he said, but what's that then? And I had a look and I saw it was a walnut. For the first time ever, there was a walnut. And we kept on looking and we found 5 on the tree. It was a little tree, so it wasn't very big even. So we found 5. So I had a mulaqat 2 or 3 days later, and I mentioned this to Hazrat Khalifa Khamis. So Hazrat Khalifa Khamis became silent for told by the Jamaat that he was going to be sent to Algeria for a short tour. So just a few days after that, he was sent back to Algeria to go and check on the Jamaat, etc. He rang me while he was there and told me, Mabruk, I have good news for you. I said, what is it? He said, we've had some beds. So I said, how many? He said, 5. The same as the number of walnuts on the tree. So you see, so both the Khulafa's words came true because in effect, that was an effort of the UK Jamaat who had sent him and then he had obtained these beds. But also Hazrat Khalifa Khamis's words came true because he said, it means we will get beds in Algeria. So the lesson to draw from this is when the Khulafa say something, it comes true. Allah makes it come true. This I have seen, if I've seen anything in my experience of working with the Khulafa, it is this, that everything they say always comes true. This is the blessing which accompanies them. And with these few words, I will end here. I hope that you will have had a window onto, the character and personality of the Khalifa Rabi, Rahimahullah, but also of Hazrat Khalifa Khamis, Aydul Talam Aziz. And may Allah grant these blessings to us evermore, inshallah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah ta'ala aslan jaza Ghani Jahangir Khan Sahib. Jazakumullah for sharing your experiences of your blessed time with the Khulafa. Now we come to the next item, that is a speech and some visuals by respected Hafiz Skandar Sahib. Mukarram Hafiz Sikandar Sahib, kings shall seek blessings from thy garments mounted on horses.
Vêtements. Merci beaucoup, Amir Saib.
لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Respecté ami.
Dear President of Canada Jamaat and PAAMA President, distinguished invitees and all people who are attending, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My speech today is to speak about the realization of a prophecy that was given to the Imam Mahdi, peace be upon him, and the prophecy goes as that kings shall seek blessings from your garments. One of the details of the realization of this prophecy was a link to somebody, the king of Kapaki Akbara II, who was the king of Parakou, the president of the traditional chiefs of Benin. Given that Khalifat Masih IV, Allah be pleased with him, had stated in Jalsa Sanat 2000 in UK that this prophecy had again been accomplished, realized, and that this time one of the chief kings of Africa, King of Parakou of the Republic of Benin, and it is only Allah's grace and the favors of Allah that he gave to a humble servant of a Murshid Jamaat the opportunity to contribute to the realization of this prophecy, and I'm going to explain to you in what way this happened. At the time of the Jalsa Salana of 1999 in Benin, we were surprised, astonished, that thousands of people who were supposed to be attending to our Jalsa Salana didn't come up. They didn't come. And then we learned thereafter that they had been stopped by the King Akpapi II, who had been influenced by mullahs. After the Jalsa, the first plan was to go and meet the king, and so some members of the National Mamla and I too, as Amir of Benin at that time, we traveled 450 kilometers to go and meet the king about whom we were talking. Once arrived at his castle, he didn't allow anybody to go inside except me to meet him. That was the first meeting. He didn't ask any question. I was given 45 minutes to introduce the Jamaat to the king. After my presentation to him, he wanted to have certain books written by the Promised Messiah, and I offered them to him. At the end of 3 weeks thereafter, I was contacted by the secretary of the king, and I had an appointment with him. That is the second meeting that I had. He told me that he had read the books that I had given him, but that he had some questions to ask. And there were the normal questions that normally that mullahs have influenced and to misguide as far as our Jamaat is concerned. So the occasion was given to this humble servant of Allah to answer all the questions and accusations that had been leveled against our Jamaat. Third meeting with the king. When I was arrived at the king told me that he had read the books and had made his own private inquiry on all the accusations that had been leveled by the mullahs against our Jamaat. And in fact, he had inquired outside of Benin too, and that his heart was now totally opened to accept Islam Ahmadiyya as being the true Islam. Je vois que the slides are not following my presentation. So I was saying that the king of Parakou had an inquiry made outside of Benin, and that he said that his heart was now open to accept Islam Ahmadiyyat as being the true Islam. He added that all that had been said against the Jamaat were absolute lies and the calumnies. Among the books that he had read, a book called We Ahmadi Muslims, that you can see on the screen on the left, which had been written by Jadullah Banu Sahib of Mauritius, who is now passed away. And in another book of Promised Messiah that had been translated in French in Mauritius by Amadou Sensukia Sahib, it is the Noah's Ark. And he had read this book in those books that in order to become an Ahmadi, one had to sign a bayat form, and he asked me for a copy of that bayat form, which I presented to him. He signed it, and at the moment of signing it, I was saying loudly the takbir, and the members of Amla who were waiting outside, they heard the takbir and they replied loudly, Allahu Akbar. And at that time, I asked permission of the king for the members of the Jamaat to enter the palace to be present at it, and he gave the permission for them to join us. So, Alhamdulillah, Allah be praised. Again, Allah be praised. Seventh slide, please. When I informed the fourth Khalifa, Rahmatullah, that the king of Parakou, who is also the president of all the traditional chiefs of Benin, had accepted Islam Ahmadiyyat, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih the fourth, Allah be pleased with him, was very happy, and he told the king to preach Ahmadiyyat to all those who had not been to the Jalsa because of his instructions. So the king put these instructions of Hazrul in practice at that time. We would go together, as you can see here on this slide, we would go to visit various places, and he would tell people that he had now become an Ahmadi himself, and he told them that Ahmadiyat was true Islam. When the mullah, when they learned that he had accepted Ahmadiyat, they started to say that it was not true. And it is this way that the king went on a radio station and announced himself that he had accepted Islam Ahmadiyat. And this is when thousands of people joined the Jamaat, number of mosques, a number of villagers with a mosque and the Imam joined the Jamaat. The fourth Khalifa invited the king to come to Jalsa Salana of 2003. And it was the first time that he came to the Jalsa, on which I'm going to show a video of the king thereafter, speaking about his impressions when he met the Khalifa for the first time, and how he told the fourth Khalifa told him that this was the realization of a prophecy, and the words written in French by the hands of Maulana Abdul Ghani Jahangir, who is today present with us, and who is the head of the French department in UK. The letter of king and the garments of blessed garments of the king were given to the king, who was the recipient of his blessing. I want to add here that in his office, when Hazur presented the blessed garments of the promised Messiah to the king, the Hazur also mentioned that this will not stay only in his office, but that the whole world will bear witness this accomplishment, the realization of this prophecy given to the promised Messiah. And so at the time of Jalsa of UK in 2000, he himself made mention of this realization by presenting to two kings the garment of promised Messiah. During the Jalsa of UK, at the time of Jalsa of UK, the previous slide, the king was invited by our Jamaat to visit other countries, and among all that he chose to visit was Mauritius. And so he came and was present at the Jalsa Salana of Mauritius in the year 2003. His Majesty the King invited Hazrat Khalifat Masih IV to visit Benin and to be present at the Jalsa Salana of Benin in the year 2000. But at that time, the health condition of Hazur didn't allow him to travel. And at that time, Hazur had delegated Maulana Abdul Ghani Jahangir Khan Sahib to represent him. And during the Jalsa, the revelation given to Hazrat Masih Maud was realized. And on the next slide, you can see that a dream of the promised Messiah was realized when kings would riding on horses. At that time of the Jalsa, the kings came along on about 50 horses were there. About 50,000 people were present at this Jalsa, one of the largest assembly of people, group of people in Africa at that time. In April 2004, the fourth Khalifa, may Allah be his helper, visited Benin, and the king was at that time very ill and could not come to welcome the Khalifatul Masih in person. But the king, another king, was sent to represent the king, and a minister of the government was sent by the president of the Republic of Benin to the airport to welcome our beloved Khalifa, and the Majesty the King was the one who made all the protocol arrangements. It was like a state visit of Hazur when the king was an Ahmadi. The last slide here, and the people would, and these you can see the horses accompanying the car of Hazur, the fifth Khalifa, and you can see, and on the slides on the left and on the right, that Hazur was taking the bath. 4,000 people who took bath with Hazur during his visit there, and all of them, these are people who belong to the region of where the king came from, the king of Parakou, 4,000 baths by the grace of Allah. So allow me at the end to thank all of you, those who have worked in Benin, and the Mualamin who are working in Benin, who are on this program for the realization of this prophecy. Jazakallah to Ami Sahib of Canada and to PAAMA Canada for having organized this today's event. Jazakallah to the former Amir of Mauritius, Amin Jawahir Sahib, and the present Amirs, Mr. Hanif Masrab Sahib, and the MTA of Mauritius, who has kept all these souvenirs in video of a king when he visited Mauritius that are going to be shown later after my speech. Jazakumullah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you could show the video now, that would be good.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Je ne saurais prononcer un mot sans d'abord rendre grâce à Allah. Allah, le souverain de l'univers. Je tiens ici devant cette auguste assemblée à dire que je suis un homme au comble du bonheur. Car le jour où j'entrais dans la communauté Ahmadiyya du Bénin, dans l'enceinte de mon palais moi-même, l'islam que je vivais à cette époque était superficiel. Croyez-moi. J'ai alors dit à l'envoyé de l'Amir de Porte-Nouveau à Parakou, 450 km, toujours à l'intérieur du Bénin. Parakou, la troisième ville du Bénin et capitale de la province du Borgou. Je disais à l'envoyé de l'ami que je voudrais le voir lui-même. Il a répondu favorablement à cette invitation. Lors de notre rencontre, ami, vous êtes encore là. L'ami m'a longuement parlé de la communauté islamique Ahmadiyya, des 5 piliers de l'islam. Et peu à peu, mes frères, mes inquiétudes se sont transformées en sécurité. Certes, avec des propos assez convaincants. L'Amir me fait vivre Ahmadiyya au quotidien. J'étais maintenant sûr que mon engagement pour la Jamaat islamique Ahmadiyya resterait tant que je serai en vie, Inch'Allah. Ainsi, prenait départ le premier souffle de l'Ahmadiyya dans le nord du Bénin. Mais mon peuple et moi, mes chefs traditionnels, tous convaincus de la véracité de l'imam Mahdi, as-salatu salam, estam inébranlable. Tellement j'étais imprégné de cette vérité que je n'ai pas pu m'empêcher d'aller à la radiodiffusion faire une déclaration pour déterminer ma position. À partir de ce moment, je me suis rendu compte que les bénédictions divines ont commencé par pleuvoir sur moi. La première fut l'invitation du 4e calife, paix à son âme, pour assister à la Jalsa Salana de la Jamaat en Grande-Bretagne, à Londres, en l'an 2000. Ce voyage fut pour moi l'accomplissement d'un rêve. celui de rencontrer le représentant de Dieu sur la terre et finir avec les imaginations. Ma rencontre avec le 4e calife, paix à son âme, fut l'un des moments les plus pathétiques de ma vie. J'ai été séduit, surpris de la chaleur de l'accueil, l'hospitalité dans Londres, et puis l'ordre, l'amour et la discipline qui l'entourent. C'est un chef à la hauteur. De toute mon existence, ce sont des comportements que je n'ai jamais vécus. Cette invitation du calife, paix à son âme, était d'aller chercher les bénédictions de la Jamaat islamique Ahmadiyya en prenant part à cette 34e Jalsa Salana à Londres, en l'an 2000. C'est à cette occasion que sa sainteté, paix à son âme, m'annonçait que l'une des prophéties du Messie promis s'est réalisée à ma modeste personne. Je remercie Dieu. C'est ainsi que le 27 juillet 2000, dans son bureau, il me remettait voyez-vous, ce morceau de vêtements bien encadré de Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Ce concert de bénédiction ne s'était pas arrêté là. Prenez, montrez les gens. Prenez. Ce concert de bénédiction ne s'était pas arrêté là seulement. J'en demeure reconnaissant et je dis très haut toute ma gratitude en Allah, à sa sainteté, le 5e calife, qu'Allah l'aide dans ses œuvres de continuité au plan mondial et à la Jamaat islamique Ahmadiyya du Bénin en particulier.
Aslan Jada Hafiz Ehsan Skandar Sahib, missionary in charge, Belgium, for your speech and the video with the kings mounted on horses. Jazakumullah. Now we come to the book review. It would be in French, and it would be on the topic of the will by Sayyidina Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam by Brother Imran Shado Sahib. Brother Imran Shado Sahib.
لا شريك الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, respected Amir Sahib of Canada, respected Amir Sahib of Mauritius, Mr. President of PAAMA Canada, and my dear brothers and sisters and listeners, may the peace and blessings of Allah be on each of you. May we have the first slide, please? Next slide, please. This book was written by the promised Messiah alayhi salam. His name is Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian. Next slide. The promised Messiah wrote this book 3 years prior to his demise, that is in 1905. In this book, he is announcing the good news of the second manifestation of the divine blessings in the form of the Caliphate. He is describing the purpose of this institution, that is the planning of the service of Islam Ahmadiyya, establishing a graveyard, that is the Bhashti Maqbara, where in the sight of Allah are deserving of paradise. It should be known that during the life of the promised Messiah, he has received numerous revelations. Prior to his demise, he has also received some revelations. So God is addressing to him in this manner, your end is nigh, and we shall not leave any souvenir of your demise that shall be a disgrace for you. You shall die in a state where we shall be around you. In this prophecy that I just read, can be interpreted in two ways. First, all the objections of the opponents of the promised Messiah to humiliate the promised Messiah shall not succeed. Secondly, anyone who has a hatred for the promised Messiah through the path of meanness, Allah Ta'ala will take care of them and destroy them. Next slide. By continuing on this part of this revelation, the promised Messiah says, very few days are left. On that day, all will be saddened. This will happen, this will happen. He repeats again that this will certainly take place. And then many calamities will happen, and then your death will come. And the promised Messiah says, Allah has announced him a lot of calamities and earthquakes and death will happen. Cities will be destroyed. But in this situation, he announces a good news, that is for those who repent, those who stay away from sin. There shall be no fear, no grief. Next slide. The promised Messiah has said that God told him, you are a warner on my behalf, to distinguish between the just and the mean. It is to be known that a lot of signs have manifested to witness the truthfulness of the claim of the promised Messiah. Amongst them are the eclipses of the moon and the sun during the month of Ramadan. There's also the pest and the cholera that happened. There were numerous earthquakes in a lot of different parts of the world. In this book, the promised Messiah will manifest in two ways. to destroy the enemies of the prophets. The first one is that during his life of the prophet, the eyewitnesses of these manifestations will see the signs. The second will be after the demise of the prophet. His movement will face certain difficulties, even amongst his own followers. Some of them will follow the path of apostasy, and then God will show the second manifestation of divine manifestation, where the movement may seem to be failing, but there shall be a miracle of God. In another book, Brahim Ahmadiyya of the Promised Messiah, he says, I shall make this Jamaat who are your followers triumph over others till the day of judgment. So the second divine manifestation shall remain until the day of judgment. So the promised Messiah says that it is necessary for him to leave so that you shall be able to witness the second manifestation of God, which is to happen after his lifetime and which shall remain till the end of the days. The promised Messiah salam, has also received the good news of the graveyard, which means that it's a place where it was shown as his place of burial. He says that I saw the angel showing me the place of my burial, and it was a shining place which was much more brilliant than a mountain of silver. And then God had shown me an area which was where the graveyard was to be situated, which is called the Bhashti Maqbara. This heavenly graveyard was for those who were the chosen people from the community, for the righteous member of the community. It was only for those who fulfilled some conditions of certain conditions. Some of them one of them was to leave 1/10, at least 1/10 of your property in service of Islam and Ahmadiyya. And amongst other conditions were those who abstain from association with Allah. It's also to be known that the second caliph had pronounced a discourse on the New World Order. In this conference, he also elaborated upon the purpose and the goals of this new system that had to do with the religious, the economic, the social purpose of this New World Order. We can see that the communist system fully broke down in the 90s, and the capitalist system is also to fail. So it is upon us as Ahmadis to be prepared and ready to implement this new system, which is solely based on justice, and this system will be to spread Islam, to help the orphan and the needy, and voluntary cooperations amongst human beings. And it is in opposition to the current unjust system we see. At the end, the promised Messiah had some special prayers for those who were to join the system. Those are the people with a pure heart who have practically given precedence to their faith over the world, who submitted themselves to Allah, who have brought in themselves a change, who are like the companions of the Holy Prophet, like Hazrat Abu Bakr, Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Uthman, and Hazrat Ali. And in closing, some teachings for our members are: the promised Messiah has said that those who will join this system will be blessed in all manners. So I urge all the members to please read this book a few times in order to understand what the promised Messiah says in this book. I humbly request all the AMLA members of the PAAMA to be part of this system. So this is the end of my speech. Jazakumullah. Thank you.
Presentation. This brings us to questions and answers. I request the organizers to please organize the system of receiving questions. How are we receiving questions?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We expect questions to be texted to a number which was shown on the YouTube.
Okay.
And
okay.
The receiver is supposed to relay the message to Amir Saab immediately.
And how many questions have we received by now?
Hamid Saib, do you have any questions received?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Amir Sahab, I have not seen any questions come to the number that we gave. I have not seen any. They were supposed to be sent by text message to a number that we had given, which is on my phone, and also by WhatsApp. I haven't seen anything. I do not know.
So in that case, I propose that our panel members give their own impressions of this event in the allotted time. We have actually gone beyond our allocated time. So I would recommend the panel members, our presenters, speakers, to come forward and briefly give their impressions of this novel event that PAAMA has organized. First of all, I venture my own comments. Mauritius, the name Mauritius has fascinated me. And I think that if I were not an Ahmadi, I would not have known the paradise island of Mauritius even by now. Since it was the second Jamaat where a missionary was sent from Qadian. So when I was introduced to Ahmadiyyat, and in my college days, I had some fellow students who were studying with me, and they had come from Mauritius. One was Mr. Hassan Mustan. I still remember his name. We became friends, and he told me about the island of Mauritius and the Jamaat. So it's a sweet memory which is being replayed today with this event. And I pray that Mauritius Jamaat, being among the first ones to be established, flourishes by the grace of Allah and remains in the leading position in the Jamaats. And Allah may enable it to spread the message which has reached its shores to all around it. I welcome the members of the panel to likewise give their impressions of this event. Another thing which I normally mention when I speak about Mauritius is, I was amused when I first heard that the Mauritians say that God made Mauritius. And he was so impressed by its beauty that he decided to make heaven on the same pattern. It amused me so much. And I was looking forward to an opportunity of visiting this paradise island. And through courtesy of my friends, by grace of Allah, it was possible for me. And I visited Mauritius in 2019 at their Jalsa Salana. And it was a wonderful visit. And I could see the paradise island with my own eyes. Jazakumullah for the Jamaat of Mauritius who played host for us for their excellent hospitality and the honor they gave me. Jazakumullah ta'ala asnal jaza.
Jazakallah. Mukarram Amir Sahib, will you allow me to say a few words?
Oh, yes, please. Welcome.
Jazakallah. I would like to request prayers for Dr. Nazimuddin Budan Sahib, a Mauritian who passed away, and Hazur made mention of him yesterday in his khutbah. So, so for more than 40 years, he has been serving as a Waqf Zindagi in Nigeria and also in Ivory Coast, and he passed away as a Waqf Zindagi. So his brother, Dr. Muhammad Sadiq Budan Sahib, who is also among the panelists, so we would like also to extend our condolences to him and the family. I would like also Amir Sahib to make mention that by grace of Almighty Allah, as had been made mention by respected Amir Sahib of Mauritius, that so many missionaries are serving in Mauritius and also abroad. So I would like also to make mention that we have doctors also serving abroad as Mauritian, like in Benin. Nowadays we have Dr. Mahmoud Banu Sahib and his daughter Anila Banu Sahiba working in the same place of the King of Parakou, where I'm in the same city where the Jamaat and Hospital. So just to remember all of those serving the Jamaat, and of course so many other countries also are doing it, as we are talking about Mauritius today. So we have a long, history between Mauritius and those who are serving the Jamaat in Mauritius and abroad. Jazakallah.
Jazakumullah ta'ala asan al jaza. I remember Dr. Nizam Budan Sahib, my first opportunity to meet him was in Nigeria in around 1982 when I made a short visit to Lagos. And I still remember my impression, a very pleasant impression of him. I went to him as a patient, and he was so kind. And the second opportunity was when I visited Mauritius 2 years ago, and he was so kind to host us twice in his house, and his hospitality, his kindness, his love, which he showered on me, being the friend of his brother. It was phenomenal, and I still remember it. May Allah grant him great reward and grant him his nearness in the paradise of his pleasure. Who would like to express his feelings next?
Assalamu alaikum, Mr.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I just want to say a few words with your permission.
Yes, most welcome.
Well, I want to thank everyone who have, on behalf of the president of PAAMA, I'm sure the president himself will have a few things to say. I think this is a first for us as expats of Mauritius to do such a program. And we will later on review the program and see where we did okay and where improvement needs to be done. But on my own behalf also, I want to thank you personally. And I'm very pleased also that you visited Mauritius and now you're chairing this program about Mauritius. It makes so much sense.
It's my pleasure.
And also, Amir Sahib Mauritius, Jangir Khan Sahib, PAAMA President, Sekandar Sahib, and all those who were, there was a lot of hours put behind this program. And we hope that everyone has enjoyed it. Jazakumullah.
I have enjoyed it, and I hope everyone who is watching must have enjoyed it. Yes, Mukarram Abdul Ghani Jahangir Khan Sahib.
Jazakumullah. Misa, with your permission, I'd like to say something.
Yes, welcome.
I wanted to say that, as Mauritians, we're really, really honored that a very large country like Canada has given us the opportunity as a very small country, a very small nation, so small that even today I meet people who, when they ask, where are you from? And I say Mauritius, they don't know where it is. So we're really honored that, this large country has given us a kind of recognition. Of course, as you had very rightly stated, in the Ahmadiyya Jamaat, we have a long-standing history, but it's mostly Ahmadis who are aware of this. The outside world are not so aware. But I think that thanks to this program on YouTube, many other people outside the community will also, maybe their interest might be, drawn or piqued, by what they see, and they might be intrigued and want to find out a little bit more. And also the Ahmadis, even in Mauritius, maybe some of them have learned a few new things today about their own, the history of their Jamaat. So it would be, nice if this series of programs on different countries could continue. I think hopefully PAAMA in Canada are planning on doing something of this sort, because it's always very useful for everybody within the community and without, to learn a bit about the history, the very rich history that we have within the Ahmadiyya community around the world. So thank you once again. And I take this opportunity to say Assalamu alaikum to all our brothers and sisters who are watching us in Mauritius and in other countries too. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah, Jazakumullah ta'ala asran jaza. Yes.
Amir Sahib, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I am told that we have slightly gone over our allocated time, and I don't see any questions, but a number of congratulatory notes coming from Mauritius and from other people around the world. I suspect that if I would say that if there is no other person who wants to intervene, that perhaps we should bring the meeting to a close with dua led by yourself. If I may so suggest.
The next item is the report by
yes, that's true.
Abdul Ghani Omokani Sahib, President of PAAMA, Canada.
That's true.
Abdul Ghani Omokani.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah khaira for this very interesting program. I will start with my slide. I hope somebody is also going to show it on the screen for us. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Lan tanalul birra hatta tunfiqu mimma tuhibbun. وما تنفقوا من شيء فإن به عليم من ذا الذي يقرض الله حسنا فيضاعفه له وله أجر كريم. The translation of the verses of the Quran I've just read reads, never shall you attain to righteousness unless you spend out of that which you love. And whatever you spend, Allah surely knows it well. This is Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 93. The second verse says, who is he that will lend to Allah a goodly loan? So he will increase it manifold for him, and he will have a generous reward. Surah Al-Hadid, chapter 57 of the Holy Quran, verse 12. Most respected Amir Sahib, Canada, all distinguished guests and speakers, viewers across the globe, I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. With the approval of Ozur Anwar, Ayadallah Nasir Assis, we had a project that we are embarking on in Cameroon, and I'm trying to alight on this program, the status of this project. We have remitted about 12,300 Canadian dollars to start this project in January 23rd. The foundation was laid in January 23rd this year. This mosque is at Bafia area, about 100 kilometers from the capital city, Yaoundé, where about 10 small villages have joined the Jamaat. Obviously, the existing mosque has become very small for this big number of converts, and this project is to expand the mosque. And because of their limited resources, they are building at the same spot of the mosque and just expanding the size. After the project is estimated to be about 30,000 Canadian dollars. So this mosque will serve as central mosque for the village. Now, they have got to the roof level, and the money we have sent to them so far, which was about $12,000, has finished. And it's coming to Ramadan time. They have to roof it and get the large population to start praying. So I'm appealing to everyone that is interested, or good Ahmadi, to let us raise about $10,000 within the next week, actually, or 2 weeks before Ramadan, so that we can be able to roof it. I got a message directly from missionary in charge, Cameroon, today, say that they have finished the job to the roof level and they have stopped working there. So they pray that we'll be able to get to their aid on time before the Ramadan, just to roof it. So this picture I got like about 2 weeks ago, they must have got much more than that. The next project we have is the one in Ghana. Actually, we launched this one in our last PAAMA Canada meeting this year in commemoration of the 100 years Jubilee of Ghana, to also contribute to that place. When I approached Amir Ghana, he said that the best thing for us to do is to actually build a mosque there, because they are in their need of a mosque for so many villages. However, when I approached him, I said he should give us the name of the village and whatever. I said he cannot, he's very hesitant to give us the village, because he said he doesn't want to commit himself to any project if he doesn't have all the money. So I'm appealing to all my good Ghanaian members and everybody who is interested in this project to let us raise the approximate amount of this project is 15,000. is actually smaller than that of Cameroon. So if we are able to get this one before the end of the year, Ghana will now give us the name and the progress of the project. I've given it all the pattern we wanted and everything, and it's a small mosque, and we believe we can also accomplish it. So I'm begging you. Lastly, I would like to remind us of a saying of the Promised Messiah. Again, alayhi salam, it says, the fifth means of achieving the purpose of life appointed by God Almighty is striving in his cause. That is to say, we should seek God by spending our wealth in his cause and by employing all our faculties in furthering his cause. As it is said, strive in his way with your wealth and your lives, and with all your faculties, and whatever we have bestowed upon you of intelligence and knowledge and understanding and art, employ it in our cause. We surely guide along our ways those who strive after us. This is the purpose of being a member of this Jamaat, and we pray that Almighty Allah will bless each and every one of us. And on behalf of PAAMA Canada, I wish to thank you all for joining us virtually today to partake in our spiritual journey to one of the remotest corners of the world in Africa. It's a sign of fulfillment of the grand prophecy of the Promised Messiah, which says, I shall cause thy message to reach all corners of the heart. And I hope we all benefit immensely from this treatise. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khaira.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. With this, I invite you all to please join me in the silent prayer that Allah may bless this event, Allah may bless the activities of PAAMA Canada, and Allah may enable it to achieve its all noble objectives. Please join me in the silent prayer. Dua kar lein. Ameen, Allahumma ameen, barakallahu lakum, jazakumullahu ta'ala, ahsan al-jaza.
Jazakallah, Miss Mukarram, Miss.
Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah, Amir Sahib Mauritius, Jazakumullah, and
Jazakumullah.
Zaleen Jack Mir Sahib, Jazakumullah, and Hafiz Ihsan Skandar Sahib, Jazakumullah ta'ala for joining us, and Dr. Sadiq Budan Sahib, and Ram Juan Sahib, and everybody who has helped us organize this event. May Allah reward you graciously. Jazakumullah ta'ala asnal jaza fi amanillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
मिलाया पांचवा ओजे अफ्रीका पे तारा झिलमिलाया पांचवा अज़मते इस्लाम का ये बन गया रोशन निशान ओजे अफ्रीका पे तारा झिलमिलाया पांचवा इनकलाब 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 तपते सहराओं पे बरसी है घटाए पुरसुरूर आ गया है रेगजारों پر بہاروں کا سما تپتے صحراؤں پہ برسی ہے گھٹائے پرسرور آ گیا ہے ریگزاروں پر بہاروں کا سما اوج افریقہ پہ تارا جھلملایا پانچواں عظمت اسلام کا یہ بن گیا روشن نشاں اوج افریقہ پہ تارا جھلملایا پانچواں انقلاب 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 مسکرایا ہے رخ مسرور اس انداز سے دیکھتے ہی دیکھتے ایک کھل اٹھا ہے گلستاں مسکرایا ہے رخ مسرور اس انداز سے دیکھتے ہی دیکھتے ایک کھل اٹھا ہے گلستاں اوج افریقہ پہ تارا جھلملایا پانچواں عظمت اسلام کا یہ بن گیا روشن نشاں انقلاب 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 تشنہ روحوں نے بجھا لی اپنی برسوں کی پیاس عشق و مستی میں ہوئے مخمور سب پیر و جوان تشنہ روحوں نے بجھا لی اپنی برسوں کی پیاس